This morning, rather than do the morning meditation, I decided to break it up a little bit, combat hedonic adaptation, and do another meditation. And I meditated listening to The True Power of Success, tape 2, side 1. And Lazaris kind of pushed into a terrain that I've been pushing back on and also exploring. So I wanted to look at that. So the message that Lazaris is verbally saying is, you can have it all. When did you forget that you can have it all? And so that's the question. When did you forget? When did I forget that I can have it all? So the first thing that I want to bring up is I reject the belief that I can have it all in pragmatic terms. I've explored a wide range of biographies. I've watched biographies. I've watched my own biography. For example, I've spent time as lovers with roughly 100 women around the globe, and I've never had it all. And what I mean by that is, I may be with a magnificent poetess, right? Someone who can follow imagination and who can write beautiful cards and give gifts of flowers and become entranced with music. And she's obsessive compulsive and mildly schizophrenic and writes contradictory back and forth with, gets lost in her own inner dialogue. And that's having it all as a poetess, but not as a present and attuned and respectful communicator, right? Or the most amazing orgasm of my life. But she's a thief and a prostitute, it turns out, right? Not my idea of having it all, right? Or the person that teaches me the most, but rejects me, right? I meet this amazing person, one of the few people who is I recognize immediately that I can learn from her, right? People are always learning things from me. Oh, I learned this from you. I learned that from you. But a lot of the time, I'm not learning that much. I've got plenty of shortcomings. I've got plenty of blind spots. I'd like someone who doesn't have those blind spots and shortcomings to put that into language for me. And they don't, right? But she did, right? In 30 minutes of our first date, I'm recognizing I'm learning things that I didn't know, and I didn't know that I didn't know this. This is wonderful. I need to prioritize this relationship. She rejects me in the same 30 minutes. I'm not grounded enough, she says, for her. Well, teach me the technique. I'll practice the technique. This is a really big opportunity. I'm excited about meeting someone who knows things that I don't know. I love it. It's refreshing. But obviously, it's not everything to have such a relationship be over in 30 minutes, right? That's not having it all, right? And, the woman that makes me laugh 700% more than any other person I've ever met in my life, right? That's having it all on the laughter dimension. But she's terrified of intimacy. But she is a chronic liar. But she is a chronic addict, right? Is that having it all? Not my definition, right? So it doesn't matter the dimension, right? I've been in the US much more than I'd like to be and have been in recent years for one reason. Having experienced traumatic uncertainty, having come close to going broke and needing money, I've decided I've had enough of being on the edge. And so I'm making more money than I've made by a factor of 200 or 300% at any other point in my life. I'm tripling my income, right? But it's not having it all, no. I'm also shortening my vacation and travel by the same 300%. I'm shortening my relaxation to push into dealing with difficult, wealthy clients with high degree of particularness in conjunction with a set of Hispanic, Latino employees that really think that most of the things that rich clients are obsessed about are not that important, and I might agree with them, but nonetheless, they think they're very important, right? And so it's stressful to communicate, right, how important all these little details are from the client and get that across to the crew, right, who really doesn't give a damn about most of that, right? So that's not having it all. It's having a lot of money, right? And so I'm building up an investment fund. And I've also decided, I've been sick of the idea of just being rich to be rich. And, it's one of the reasons I haven't focused on money very much. I've focused on experiences and traveling and, make $100,000 and then go off traveling has been my mode. And the idea of how to make $100,000 in fewer months. Could I make $100,000 in 2 or 3 months and then spend 9 months traveling and exploring? Could I do it in 2 months, right? That's been the refinement process, not making more money and investing it. I've had blocks about investing, and that's been interesting to see how uncomfortable I am. The cringes in my body around having wealth. And so it's been very uncomfortable. But, and that was actually a visceral experience in the meditation, as a side note, right? Just how uncomfortable I feel in my body around wealth, around abundance, and expecting to be physically hit, right? Very uncomfortable to be waiting to be hit, right? And that's the most uncomfortable, cringe-like feeling in my body memory. The times when I was waiting to be hit by a giant as a small child. Right. So, and apparently that's somehow linked with, success, etc., with abundance, right? So I'm listening to Lazaris, right? Because what this iteration of my relationship with Lazaris is all about is dialogue, right? I'm tired of monologue, Lazaris monologuing, without the space for dialogue, right? It seems like 99% of all of Lazaris' relationships with their friends is them talking about what they want to say, when they want to say them, in the way they want to say them, where they want to say them, and then selling them, right? You buy us talking. Where's the space to dialogue, to question, that doesn't make any sense at all, right? So this is one of those moments, right? So Lazaris, you show me one person who has it all. One person who has it all. It's not Jack. It's not Penny. It's not me. It's not anyone that I've met, right? I'm not sure that it's physically possible. So money's up, vacation is down. Stress is up, but insecurity about the future is down. Stress in the moment, like short-term stress is up, tripling my income. But anxiety about the future is down. And that's my understanding of how reality functions, right? Reality is spherical, and it's a cycle, right? And there are cliches, like you have a lot of time but no money, or you have a lot of money but no time. That's speaking to this cycle, right? That at any given point, we're on different points of this cycle, maturation cycle, abundance cycle. Take investing, right? You want to make a lot of money. Okay, Lazaris says that it's easy, but you can't earn a lot of money, according to Lazaris. You have to invest, and then you can be rich as you want, says Lazaris, right? But you have to invest the money. Well, what's the first step of investing? Right? Because the starting point is you make money and you spend money, right? You make money and you spend money, you make money and you spend money, and you make money and you spend money, right? But investing is you don't spend it all on chocolate, on travel, on whatever, right? You make money, you invest in the money, which is a deprivation. Right? A farmer gets an ear of corn, and they don't just eat it, they dry it, and they prepare the seeds, and they plant the seeds, and they water it, and they work harder, and the seeds grow. Right? Seeds grow, and then you have more ears of corn. Right? That's the way life works. You plant money, you water it, and it grows, and then you have more money. But not before you have less money, right? Which is why any effective wealth educator focuses on one of the key distinctions, which is called short-term versus long-term gratification. So what are we talking about? Well, taking the time to get a degree. You pay more in time and money, but then you can make more later once you're talented, once you have specialized knowledge. You want to become wealthy, well, maybe computer programming. But you don't just go out and get money from weeding someone's lawn. Instead of weeding someone's lawn or cleaning out their gutters, you spend money, you delay gratification, you learn skills. So what are those years like, right? Hard to make the mortgage, right? Barely make ends meet, right? British term, right? So you have the lean years, but you're working for something more. You have the lean months where you don't just eat the corn, you plant the corn, you water the corn, but later you get the harvest, right? So that's a cycle, right? So if you want more, you start with less, right? You start by taking out some of the money you were spending on luxuries and you invest it. And then you water that investment, right? And you pick the right area. You may have to study investing. Well, that's another thing. Who wants to study financial reports of companies? Right? Well, Warren Buffett enjoys it, but most people, I don't enjoy going through 82-page reports of different corporations. That's deferred gratification, right? I could just be enjoying the view, but no, I'm looking at paperwork, right? So we're going down, right? You're going to build a tall skyscraper, you go down and down and down. You dig a deep foundation. Now, who wants to be down in that pit? Do you want to be in that pit? Do I want to be in that pit? But it's necessary to go down before you can go up, right? So that's the cycle. That's the circle of energy. You go down so that you can go up. You have less so that you can have more. That's just not Lazaris's message, is it? Right? So Lazaris is proudly at odds with 95% of the most successful, whether it's hedge fund management or skyscraper builders or farmers, right? So reality is sending us a pretty clear message that to go up, you have to go down. For example, to be completely and fully free, you might have to go into your shadow and make peace with it. To have something really secure, we may have to become less secure. Right? Take a relationship. How secure is the relationship that you cling to selfishly and incessantly? Don't leave me, don't go, I don't want you to do that, I want you to be here, right? No, if you want real security in a relationship, you give someone their freedom, you go down, your risk goes up. You deal with the fear and the uncertainty. And you say, dear, I want you to do whatever makes you fulfilled. I want you to become the best version of you that you want to become. And I want you to do it with whoever you find most fulfilling, most nourishing, whoever you want to be with. As your friend, I want you to go do it. Now, what are the odds that that's going to be you? They're not that great. But if they are, if you do happen to be fortunate enough to be, I can't think of anyone I'd rather grow with as much as I'd like to grow with you. Well, then you've got something really strong. Because that's adult love. That brings freedom and gratitude. That's adult love. That's child love. Don't leave me, I need you. That's child love. Don't leave me, I want you. That's adolescent love. But please, leave this relationship the moment you're clear that you like the person you're becoming more with somebody else. That's adult love. That's mature love. That's the love of giving rather than the love of taking. There's nothing wrong with the love of taking. It's just child love. It's just adolescent love. And they need to blossom. You need to grow up. And they need to leave. That's how childhood love grows into the possibility of adult love. You've got to do that. And they've got to help you by leaving, by betraying the child, the adolescent, so that you can grow up and they can be free. So child and adolescent love must blossom for well-being, for growth, for evolution, right? Adult love doesn't need to end, though. So it's more insecure so that you can become more secure. If you happen to have the good fortune, which is relatively rare in our cult or culture, of having someone who is competent enough to meet their own needs for survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, developing their talents and knowing what those are, bringing those into the world and creating abundance and becoming part of something bigger than themselves. And they've met those needs and can meet those needs within. They have confidence in their ability to meet their own needs. And as a result, they celebrate you meeting your own needs in whatever way, without the need of desperation of the child, of the adolescent, but where they enjoy your presence. If you're fortunate enough to have someone who will put your interests ahead of any other agenda, including your own stupidity, right? Because your stupidity has an agenda, your self-punishment has an agenda, but if someone will put your well-being ahead of all their own and your own agendas, you're incredibly fortunate to have an incredibly rare person in a culture that doesn't produce that many people with those qualifications, with those competencies. It's a rare competency to find an actualized adult that chooses to be a friend, right? I don't have that down, by the way, right? 70%. Really what I do is when I encounter certain emotional volcanoes that I realize I can't contain that volcano. And in the midst of that volcano, I'm clinging to traumatic attachment more than I'm able to cling to the other person's well-being. I can just withdraw. I can recognize that I'm not a good friend in certain terrain before I become a bad friend, and I can separate. I can say, I can't be a good friend in this terrain, so goodbye and wish you well, right? I can do that, which again is better than most, right? A lot of people who aren't a good friend to me cling because I'm a good friend to them in some way, right? They feel good around me because I water parts of them that they don't know how to water and don't particularly want to learn to water. It's nicer and easier to have someone else water. Here's my dry patch of soil. Pour some water and I'll feel good. Right? Well, I don't want to just keep watering you and you're not doing any self-watering. I think I'd like to disconnect rather than become a bitch and complain. I'd like to disconnect. Oh, don't leave me. I don't want to have to take care of myself. And I don't want you to leave. I want you to keep taking care of me, right? So, it's an unusual talent. It's not very common. And again, it's certainly not having it all. And I don't experience that as, there's all these people who are adult, competent, filled with having it all and are wanting to celebrate me being my best self, and I'm blocking them. I don't experience that. That may be happening. What I experience is looking around and finding people in a self-absorbed state. Why? Well, because they're still figuring out how to meet their own needs by getting other people to, etc. And, too much narcissism becomes toxic, right? Whether it's coming from me or somebody else. So I don't experience myself fighting having, people in my life that have it all or that want to give it all or that want to receive it all. I find there's 1 or 2%, and many of them are already in lives that make it somewhat difficult to connect in a way that I know how to connect. In other words, so there's scarcity. Right? And I'm still learning how to water myself. I'm really excited, for example, that breathing meditation, something I've just learned this year, wonderful, right? Breathing meditation for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. It allows me to hold things I've never been able to hold. I've always needed to lean them on someone until I learned this meditation, and not from Lazaris, right? Which is one of the crazy-making things because, in the mythology of Lazaris's techniques work. They see things clearer than human beings see them. If you don't succeed with the Lazaris techniques, it's because you have payoffs and are in negative ego and blah, blah, blah. That's the mythology promoted by Lazaris. But it wasn't Lazaris that recommended the technique that's working the most, right? And of course, that's partly where the health in, diversity and not having a codependent relationship, a monogamous relationship with Lazaris is useful. Because if I'm only learning from Lazaris, and Lazaris is saying that their techniques work, and if they don't, it's because you didn't want them to, and blah, blah, blah. Well, then you've got an endless shame loop, an endless failure loop. But it doesn't make sense, does it, right? That I have payoffs that Lazaris techniques shouldn't work, but some stranger's techniques should work, or some therapist techniques should work, or this Lazaris technique works, but this one doesn't. I would give that back to Lazaris to figure out and talk about, rather than take that on, right? And so that's the healthier side of this iteration in my relationship with Lazaris. So why am I resistant to having it all? When did I forget that I can have it all, right? Well, I don't believe that in this sense that I'm talking that you can have it all. I think that when you think really hard and work really hard, let's say you're an Olympic athlete, right? You ever heard of an Olympic athlete that just wins the gold medal effortlessly, just born and just gets on a pair of skis for the first time and breaks the world record? No. And what does that regime look like? They get up at 4 a.m, they have the best trainer, they can't eat red meat, they don't drink wine, they can't socialize here, they do 6 hours a day. What does that sound like? To me, it sounds like effort. Not with little or no effort at all, with a lot of effort. What does Tony Robbins' life look like? Get up at 4 a.m., go in the cryogenic cold plunge, run for a bit, do this, limit his plate to a certain amount so he doesn't get too fat, go to this, do this. That doesn't sound like little or no effort at all. That sounds like a lot of thought, a lot of effort, right? Right? And what about the people that do little or no effort at all? And they get up and lay in bed for 3 or 4 hours, and wander over to the TV and put little or no effort at all and drink coffee and donuts, and it's little or no effort at all, but is that, I mean, are their lives amazing, or do they get depressed and fat, right? So there's a big disconnect there, little or no effort at all. When did I stop believing that I could have it all with little or no effort, right? That it was easier to succeed than it is to fail and all that. I don't agree with that, right? It takes actually effort to write a program, right? The reason I did this Lazaris meditation in the first place is I realized that wandering around in my impulsive feelings, something that I have the freedom to do because I've been successful, and this is another theme, by the way. People that become unusually successful get more and more freedom, and they often use their freedom poorly, and so they get particularly messed up, right? You look at the destructive element of fame in the United States statistically. If you're famous, statistically, you're in the process of being fucked up, right? Statistically. You just read the biographies, right? So, so having that amount of freedom and wandering around and looking at what grew in that garden, psychically and otherwise, I've decided that a structure, a routine, doubles my quality of life. So I have one. I don't always feel like doing it, right? I roll over bed like, did I do that? Did I do that? Oh, I didn't do running. Let's get up and go running, right? I don't want to get up and go running, but it's on the list, right? Go out, do my running. I feel better with that effort, right, than with little or no effort. And it's not having it all, right? Having it all would have been laying in bed and having all that benefit, right? And I don't see anyone else, right? You could in some ways, right, because you work out and you build muscle. Now you can do things with more ease. In other words, there's a cycle. You go down so you can go up. You train really hard, then you can lift things more easily. That's how it works. You work harder, and certain things become easier. You make certain things easier, and certain things become harder. Right? So that's the cycle. Difficulty leads to ease, and ease leads to difficulty. Right? It's why Ray Dalio's book on the rise and fall of world orders and empires is useful, right? Because once life gets too easy for the dominant world power, which is currently the United States, it always happens that the children of those that worked hard to make that possible grow up in more luxury, become more spoiled, become more entitled, don't master the art of discipline and work, and so they go into debt and spend the money that the older generation learned, earned, and made. And so then there is a decline in favor of a scrappy, hardworking new country. It's now China. But, once it was the Romans, then it was the Spanish, then it was the Dutch, then it was the British. Now it's the Americans, and next is the Chinese. Right? The luxury, the success, leads to the downfall, leads to the lack of motivation, leads to the extravagance, the weakening, the borrowing, the debt. And nobody wants to get out of the dream. The cocaine leads to being on the street. It doesn't lead to sustainable well-being. So that's the cycle. So Lazaris is talking about having it all. When did I forget that I could have it all? Right? I've never seen anyone having it all. Even people with impeccable manners and hosting all of these things that look magnificent on the outside typically will be exhausted, like Kennedy needed his cocaine shots and pain things. He was so effusive in front of the American people. But he didn't have it all, right? Oprah Winfrey doesn't have it all. I don't have it all, right? And the staff at Concept Synergy, including Jach, doesn't have it all, right? And you can see the gift and the curse in the same moment, right? The medicine, like sugar, tastes so good, and it weakens your body. Cocaine tastes so good, and it weakens your body, right? Avoiding conflict tastes so good, but it weakens your resolve. When you refuse to fight the small battles, you end up with a divorce, right? Why are so many people ending up in a divorce, right? Well, one of the reasons is I don't want to bring up this, and I don't want to talk about that, and I don't want to talk. Avoiding conflict results in a really big conflict. Dealing with every little conflict as it comes up preempts the big and unmanageable conflict of a war or a divorce. Right? So you avoid conflict and you get more of it. You seek pleasure and you get less of it, right? This just seems to be happening. I can see that pattern a lot more clearly than I see Lazaris's words, "When did I forget to have it all?" I don't think I forgot Lazaris. I think I was reminded repeatedly by the reality around me. I think I've pursued having it all, whether in relationship or living situation or work or psychology or therapy or healing. I think I've pursued having it all more than 99% of the people I encounter. But, I run into this thing. I find the perfect country and, right? I'm 3 times happier, like going to Thailand, 3 times happier anytime I'm in Thailand. It's wonderful. Running a business there sucks. I haven't met a Westerner who's in love with running business there. They all have the similar complaints. It's harder to make money, more irritating, meaning you make less money and it's more irritating. That's not at all. That's not having it all. The United States is a brilliant country, relatively speaking, for making lots of money easily. It's not a brilliant country, relatively speaking, for quality friendships. I think the US sucks, relatively speaking. It's one of the worst places I've spent time in the world for making quality friendships. I don't have quality friendships in the United States. I haven't been able to create them, sustain them, right? I've had them undermined. My last quality relationship with a Lazaris male friend was undermined by his wife, who was jealous that he was talking more about deep feelings to me than to her, even though she didn't want to hear them herself, right? So she didn't want to talk about his deep feelings, but she was jealous that he was talking to me. Well, that was my last United States male friendship. Right? I don't have a problem if somebody says, hey, I'd like to get to know you and learn how to be good friends. No one has ever done that in my entire life, right? So I don't experience pushing it away, but I do think it's more crazy making to pretend that we can have it all. I think it's crazy making to go to Thailand and expect to make a lot of money as an American. I think it's crazy making for a Thai person to come here and expect, deep family bonds relative to Thailand. I think it's crazy, right? And I push into it a little bit, right? I talked with my client yesterday. How would they feel if I went and had a bit of a vacation during the job and supervised the crew by video? Oh, they weren't happy at all, right? So I get a happy client and tied to work, or an unhappy client and a bit more vacation. Is that having it all, or is it either or? Right. I eat a chocolate eclair, I put on some weight, or I don't eat the chocolate eclair and I don't put on some weight. Is that having it all, or is that either or? Right. I invest more money into Tesla and defer buying a house, or I buy a house and I don't have as much money to invest in Tesla. Is that having it all, or is that either or? You see, because we do live in a reality that is constantly communicating its boundaries and its limits, inside and out. I cannot tolerate this feeling anymore. I've got to go do something about it. That's a boundary. I cannot tolerate this person anymore. I've got to disengage. That's a boundary. I'm going into reactivity. This bit of wood won't take any more weight. It's breaking. That's a boundary. We need to respond or the wood shatters, and with it, the consequences. So I don't get it. I'd love Lazaris to speak to this, right, which would involve dialogue, which would involve going into this. Be nice for Lazaris to actually deal with the shared reality. Now, I do think that you can have more. That's something I agree with. I've created more and more and more. Like I have more money now than I've ever had in my life. Why? Well, I stopped vacations. I focused on the goal, because one of the goals that bypassed all of that muckiness around what's the point of money and blah, 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 and just having money to have money, that wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't flowing around that at all. But the idea of retiring to run a nonprofit that has noticeable amounts of money invested, such that I don't have to go out and raise money. Oh, I love that idea. So that has a flow point, right? Help traumatized children, plant more trees, build eco-villages. I'm really excited about all that. And that needs a lot of money. And so that resolves the flow point. I'm interested in that. And retiring to be on a beach, sitting around, complaining, I'm not interested in that. Retiring to run a nonprofit that's doing things that I believe in, that make a difference in people's lives, well, I'm excited about that, right? So that's where flow is, right? So I'm now making triple the amount of money. I have triple amount of money, and I need more. Right? I need more. I want to have enough invested in the nonprofit such that the profits, right? I like Tesla. I like Ethereum. The things that I think are useful in the world. I like some of the innovative products that ARK Invest has in their funds, right? I think the world is going to be a better place with safer cars, for example, with electric cars, for example. So I'm excited to invest money in those companies. And I'm excited to have a perpetual fund where the profits can be spent on nonprofit activity. That's an exciting, quote, retirement. So now that's flowing. Is that having it all? No, not at all. My life is higher stress. I'm tireder at times. I've got more client conflicts and things to deal with in a given week. I've got more employee conflicts in a given week because I'm moving faster. I have a purpose, I have a reason to go faster, but I'm moving faster. Right? So more of everything, the good stuff, the bad stuff, comes up in a given week. Right? So there's more engagement, more stress around that. There's also more money and more excitement about the future. There's a lot of things. But what don't I have? I'm not making as many of these videos. I'm down 90% on these videos. I'm up 90% on extra time and money and more work. Right? So there's a trade-off. And I don't imagine any of you have it any differently. If you don't bring up a difficult topic today, well, you have to deal with it tomorrow. If you're watching this video, you're not watching another video. If I'm making this video, I'm not watching a Chinese movie with my life. I'm not having it all. I'm having the thing that in the context of my life is the best trade-off. This is nowhere near ideal, right? I'm not only not having it at all, I'm not anywhere near the ideal. It'd be so much more fun to be talking with these things in person. I would just have to be in a culture that had more in-person interaction along these lines for that to become probable. This conversation is not going on in my neighborhood. Right? It's just not an American thing, statistically speaking, right? Now, is there an exception? Of course. Can there be more of it? Of course. But can you have it all? No. No. I think that is not only delusional, but I think it's shaming and destructive, right? Because when you set out, and Lazaris is good enough to acknowledge this in shame, when you set out to do, when something is demanded of you that you cannot do, it is shaming. And if Lazaris doesn't have it all, Lazaris doesn't have it all, right? Unless, it would, depend on that. But regardless of that, that's somewhat speculative. Maybe Lazaris wants to have an indirect argument with one of his friends, and that's part of his 100% or their 100%. I doubt it. It's not my 100%. But saying something is better than not saying something. That's a trade-off, right? And I don't have close to having it all, meaning I'm hundreds and hundreds of % away from my ideal. And what I dream about living it is about 10 times more elegant than what I actually live. It's about 10 times more intelligent than what I live. So there's a 900% gap between what I dream about and my reality. So that's certainly not having it all, right? That's having a 900% gap. And as I move closer towards that ideal, I am constantly trading things off. Right now, I'm making a lot of money, increasing my tiredness, doing less videos of this. I finished a book recently, so I'm not doing as much of that. And my body isn't having it all, right? I'm using a certain amount of sugar to bring comfort and relaxation. And I've got a certain amount of arthritis because I've got too much sugar in my body for that element, right? And I'm eating a delicious penne pasta today. Asparagus, buffalo mozzarella, garlic bread, dripping with butter. Oh, it's delicious. Absolutely amazing. And I'm more fat than, is optimal for my energy, right? So is that having it all? No. It's having a delicious penne dinner and a pleasure and discomfort and comfort in 1 hour, and then being more uncomfortable in 100-degree weather out in the sun, right? More comfort, more discomfort, right? It seems to be the cycle. Whether it's cocaine or lies or sugar, more up and then more down. More down and then more up, right? You get up, on the other hand, you don't drink coffee and you drink a glug of water and you go out for a run, feels terrible until it feels great, right? So there's a cycle. So I think it's nonsense to talk about having it all in those terms. I think it's unfortunate that Lazaris doesn't talk about the down to go up cycle. Now they kind of do, right? In some areas. Here's these long, elaborate techniques. And if you'll do these long and arduous and elaborate techniques, your life will get better. In other words, struggle more, take notes. You don't want to drink a pitcher of water and do this and then write that today. You want to watch TV, but go and do that, So go down so you can go up in terms of the Lazaris techniques. But in some way, the Lazaris techniques, if they work, are supposed to bypass the other challenges. Like write goals and accomplish those goals, and then you'll have more money or more free time, right? Lazaris doesn't focus as much on that. Or go out for a run more, right? And then you'll feel more free and relaxed, right? Lazaris doesn't focus so much on that. Or focus hard on your 20s on getting somewhere and investing 20% of your money, right? Lazaris isn't talking about the things that work very well, statistically speaking. He's talking about little or no effort and success and all of that. That's a lot of what comes across, right? That's where I've had less than healthy relationships with the ideas prepared with, from Lazaris. And I've seen that rampantly in the community, right? Less than healthy ideas, blind spots. People not making the effort to transcend their issues, which certainly includes not just sitting around in a Lazaris workshop, but doing some somatic therapy and doing this and going out on a 10-mile run and seeing what comes up and all these other techniques that work brilliantly well. Right? So that was my first whole quick thing, and it's like, no, that's not how I see it, right? And Lazaris has to do a little better job of giving some examples, right? To kind of make the case for the up without the down, for that to seem anything but crazy making. However, right, that's not the whole tape, that's not the whole meditation. That's just, for me, a crazy making beginning to the meditation. It's very interesting that my subconscious mind reveals different images that give clues to what's going on in my relationship to success. Right? It's interesting that my body language around success is waiting to be hit physically. And obviously, there are many ways that I could be more successful, not have it all, but be more successful, much easier, right? So it's a direction. There is a direction that I think is valid. And I think that it takes an effort to go in that direction. Like, I could have things a lot easier than they are. How? By doing things harder than I'm doing them, right? I can get more ease by doing things more difficultly, right? So if I look into, for example, I don't feel like expecting to be hit, right? That wasn't an enjoyable body posture. But if I work harder, go into that, feel with that, try and remember when I first felt that. Is that coming from this lifetime? Is it not? That's hard work. So that it can be easier, so that when I think of success, I don't cringe, which means I can then have more success, right? So if I'm willing to work harder, things can be easier. If I'm willing to struggle more, I can struggle less in the future. If I invest more now, I can have more in the future. If I plant and water a seed now, I'll have more to eat later. That does make sense. That's consistent with reality. That's consistent with both Lazaris friends and non-Lazaris friends. There's plenty of Lazaris friends just show up, don't make much of an effort, and whose lives don't transform. If they could do it with little or no effort at all, why not? Any of them, right? And there's plenty of Lazaris friends that get to work and do other things other than Lazaris and stuff, and their lives get better, but still don't have it all. They have a little more and a little more. Right? We can improve our skills. So that's my distinction, right? So I'm grateful for the visualization. I'm grateful for the energy. I'm grateful for the insights. And I think that we can all apply discipline, apply effort, apply skill, invest more money, more time, more emotion to buy more, not all, but more of what we want, of our ideals.